Good afternoon. It is Wednesday, October 20th in the Express Studio. My name is Jim Mayola, and it is my privilege to be talking to Gabe Zepp. Gabe, first of all, let's start off. Were you born in Carroll County?
I was born here in 1975.
Born and raised?
Born and raised.
Never left?
Never left. Actually,
Wow.
not too far from where we're sitting, just
Okay.
down on Old Washington Road in a little village called Shipley.
Mm-hmm. And as a boy in 1975, growing up in the late 70s and the early 80s, what kind of things did you do?
Of course, I grew up on a farm, so I enjoyed all the farm aspects, whether it was doing things with the animals, riding horses, riding three-wheelers, running through the pastures, playing in the streams or the creeks that were around. You name it, I probably did it, including riding bikes and just enjoying life as a kid here in the county.
Yeah, so you were a farm boy.
It was.
Living just outside of Westminster, which I guess for you was the big city.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. It was kind of always a treat that, you jump in the back of the car with mom and dad or jump in a pickup truck with dad and you went to town on Saturday morning to go get your supplies or whatever you needed for the farm. It was always kind of a neat experience and something that you certainly look forward to.
Mm-hmm. What kind of chores did you have, Gabe?
My job was always to feed the cats and dogs and also to pick the horse stalls, feed the horses, and at times feed the cows. I guess one of the unique chores that I had when I was about 10 or 11, I always kind of matured faster than what most kids my age did, and I started to have a mustache at probably the age of 11, age 12. So Dad would usually send me in the pickup truck, go about 2 miles up the road driving the truck by myself, pull over in the cornfield, and I actually had to chop corn by hand, usually about 6 or 7 rows around the outside of the cornfield,
right,
to be able to open the corn up. So later in the fall or the early part of winter, we could get our corn picker through
sure,
to pick that corn.
Yeah.
But that was always my job, is to go and chop corn by hand, bring the corn back, and feed the cows some of that corn.
Yeah. Wow, that's great. What a great story. Gabe, where did you go to grade school?
I went to Robert Moten Elementary School, West Middle, and finished up here in the county at, of course, Westminster High School.
Okay. Did you go into college?
I did. I went to Delaware Valley College and studied large animal science there.
Good. And then came back.
And came back, worked for a company called Agway up out of Pennsylvania for about a year and a half or so, and was doing mostly dairy nutritional work at the time, and I guess realized that maybe that wasn't quite the right fit for me at the time, and I was fortunate enough that the county opened up a brand new position as a ag marketing specialist at the time through the Department of Economic Development. I was fortunate enough to apply, and I guess they liked some of the background that I had. Not only was it the marketing background, but more so the ag experience that I possessed at the time. So I was fortunate enough to land that position, and it's kind of grown and developed over the years within that position. And now it's not necessarily so much of a marketing position, but more of an ag development position. I've been there for about 11 years.
Sure. Well, fantastic, Gabe. Now, let's go back to your childhood a little bit for just a second. How large was your farm?
Okay, very small typically. We probably only farmed maybe 50 acres originally when we started off, and probably had about 10 brood cows. And as we gradually, my brother and I, my brother's 5 years older than I am, as we continued our development over the years, kind of each year the farm would take on more ground, take on a few more cows, and to the point where it's at now, and we're currently farming between my brother and I roughly 65 brood cows, which is a cow-calf operation, mostly purebred Red Angus and some Shorthorn brood cows. We crop farm probably 250 acres of hay, corn, and soybeans within the county.
Okay. And you also had horses?
I did have horses. Grew up always riding horses when I was younger. Always used to ride English, which is probably not typical for most boys, I guess, at my age and so forth. But it was a great experience. I did some eventing, which is when you do the dressage and the stadium jumping, cross-country jumping, and so forth. Did a few local horse shows, and actually competed on the equestrian team at college as well. So,
wow.
So I kind of continued that.
I don't think a lot of people realize how much exercise you get riding a horse.
Yeah, it certainly works your legs and your balance and also your mind too, because you do have to do a lot of thinking and so forth with what you need to do.
Absolutely. Now, Gabe, you were involved in 4-H as a child, weren't you?
I was.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Great programs, probably one of the neatest and the best programs I think youth today can get involved in. And it's not just an agricultural development program, but it develops all skill levels and interests with youth, as they continue to develop. For me, it was mostly always equestrian or horse riding or livestock showing and so forth. But through those experiences, a couple of the big things that I was able to accomplish was I was named Mr. Carroll County 4-H, I guess, back when I was 16.
Wow.
And I also was a national record book winner in the beef record book, which was only one of, I guess, of 8 national winners at the time when I competed in that activity. So I got to win a trip to Chicago and obviously competed at the national level and was fortunate enough to win at the national level. So that was two nice accomplishments that I can remember through 4-H and so forth. And just the other aspect about 4-H is just all the people that you meet, the friendships that you make and continue with through today at the 4-H level. It's just a really nice program.
4-H is going very strong in Carroll County, a very strong program. As a matter of fact, it was interesting to me when I first moved into the county. I know that most counties have county fairs, but in Carroll County it's the 4-H fair. So it's a little bit of a different flavor because we're putting a very strong agricultural focus on our county fair.
That's right. Yeah, you don't see the carnival aspect like you do with a lot of county fairs. And so it is strictly mostly geared towards the agricultural purpose or the intent. But of course, again, like I mentioned earlier, you do have that focus of other disciplines within 4-H. So you don't have to necessarily be interested at all within agriculture to be a part of 4-H because it does have that leadership development attribute to it as well.
Yeah. So it's going strong. Let me ask you this. Do you remember when there used to be a drive-in in Westminster?
No, I can't.
You don't remember
I've only heard about the drive-ins in Westminster, and I guess I was fortunate enough to work on a project a few years back within economic development. We had a local developer at the time that really was interested in bringing back that drive-in kind of mentality and that sort of thing. And I don't think the zoning or the right property came along to do a project like that. But it was kind of neat to kind of talk about the drive-ins at the time with some of my family members and so forth. But
because the county used to have a couple of drive-ins. We had one right here where Westminster High School was in the 60s and early 70s, probably before you were born.
Right.
It was torn down. But drive-ins are a little tough now because, at least the drive-in movies, because of all the lighting that we have around, it interferes with the screen. But I just wanted to ask if you knew anything about that. It was probably a little bit before your time.
A little before my time, but I've heard numerous stories about the drive-ins, numerous stories about the cannon factories and so forth that we used to have within Carroll County. And of course, we kind of like to bring that full scale back around, I guess, when you're talking about agriculture, because we do like to get back to our roots a little bit and try to bring back some of that value-added agriculture like we used to have within the county with some of the local creameries and things like that. And we're trying to progress, at least at the county level, with some of the ag aspects that we're looking towards and going back to full circle and trying to bring back that consumer demand for local products and be able to market those products to the consumers that we have here.
And there are some strong places here in the county that do exactly that. I think of Boggers, for example, which has orchards right here in the county and markets. And my wife loves going there. Is whenever she needs produce, that's where she goes. So it's very powerful. What do you see as the future of farming in the county?
Very good question. I think obviously technology is going to play a part in how we drive the local ag community within the county. When you start looking at the genetic end of things with whatever, if it's in our dairy industry or livestock industries, the genetics are going to play a part in the direction that we go with those, and same with the technology that's driving the grain production within the county and so forth. I mean, they're coming up with new technologies within the seeds that we plant that may have beneficial impacts that help the environment or help reduce the pesticide use and things like that, or even that can boost the immune system to a degree or provide additional minerals and stuff that we typically maybe normally wouldn't be focusing on. So technology is going to drive agriculture as it's done, I guess, throughout the years, but I would say agriculture in the county is certainly very traditional, and I certainly see it staying very traditional as it continues on, which is a good thing because we do need all of the livestock farms and the grain producers that we have. But again, you're going to see some of that diversification with Christmas trees, with wineries, vineyard operations. So still very traditional though.
Yeah, very good. I just heard a phrase the other day. I was listening to the radio and somebody said children need to remember that food is grown on a farm and not found in the grocery store. It originates on the farm.
Right.
And that's very important to remember. How are we doing with our ag preservation program? I know the county's been very strong about that, about setting aside land for posterity, so that we would have a certain amount of our land that will never be used for formal development, so that we'll always have some farms and some forests. Where do we stand?
Well, the land preservation program, probably, as you know, Jim, is probably one of the best programs within the country. And I think as far as rankings, when they look at maybe total acres preserved, I think we keep climbing and continue to climb. There obviously is concern over the programs because of the financial situation that either the county's in or the state's in, and even the taxpayers that help fund some of those programs and so forth. But it's certainly a very beneficial program. I think obviously we're getting ready to have a big change at the county government level where we're going to have 5 brand new commissioners, and to get their thoughts and feelings on how they perceive that program to be moved forward will certainly be of interest to a lot of people. But again, it's been a great program. We've got some really good people like Ralph Robertson that are in place that implement that program, and Bill Powell before him. Jeff Everett certainly is in there working with Ralph Robertson now, but they're good people. They're very smart, intelligent people that I think they'll be able to figure out ways to continue with that program that not only benefits local farmers, but it also does benefit the local taxpayers within Carroll County.
And benefits the community as a whole.
Sure.
It's very important to hold on to all the land that we can. One of the complaints that people have all the time is there's too much development. Well, we at least are trying to be conservative and hang on to what we've got, so that's very, very important for our community.
Sure.
I always close my interviews with 2 questions. The first one is, you know, you've been here your whole life. What are the most profound changes you've seen in the county in the time that you've been here?
Well, I don't know if profound changes would be the right word, but you know, I do get concerned, obviously being an ag guy within the county and growing up within agriculture all my life, at some of the development that has taken place. But of course, working within the Department of Economic Development has given me a much broader and greater appreciation for why some development, industrial, commercial development is needed, and obviously for the, as a taxpayer within the county and you know, someone that does own a house and as a family here, that's certainly very important with that industrial tax base that we have. But just to, you know, just to hopefully be able to continue that the ag process that we have within the county and not necessarily see it change for the worse, but see it develop as it should in ways that are going to be profitable for those farms that are continuing to farm within the county. I mean, that's going to be the most beneficial impact that we can see, or that at least I can see.
I agree. Last question. You've been around for a little while, and I always conclude with a question about the future. And you're one of my youngest interviews, so do your best. I like to ask people to offer advice to those coming behind them. So if you were going to offer some advice, you've got a young family of your own, and you've been through school and you've started your career. If you were going to offer some advice to a youngster that's coming up today, somebody that's getting ready to graduate from high school or graduate from college and thinking about starting a family, what advice would you give them?
Certainly I would tell them to be mindful of others and respect others. I think that's probably 2 of the biggest things, and mostly that respect. I think as long as they can respect their elders, respect the people that are around them, I think that will certainly benefit them in more ways than one, as you know, the youth today continue to develop their process. Because if you have that respect, you know, you're going to earn and receive that respect hopefully in return, and that will lead you to better opportunities hopefully within the future, or just whatever it would be. But I think respect's probably the main thing that people, young folks, need to keep in mind and be mindful of, that's for sure.
Great advice. Well, Gabe, I want to thank you so much for interviewing today.
Sure.
It was
Thank
a
you,
real
Jim.
pleasure talking to you.
Appreciate it.
Have a